After returning home, the girl entered her residence and seemed to vanish into thin air, leaving behind a mystery. The investigative team immediately took on the case and soon stumbled upon a series of horrifying circumstances. Penetrating through the fog of mysteries, they managed to uncover a shocking truth that appalled and outraged everyone following the developments. Rachel Anderson was born on January 28, 1994, in the cozy American town of Warren, Ohio, where she was the eldest in her family. With the arrival of her younger brother, she took on the role of a helper to her parents in his upbringing. During her school years, Rachel became an active participant in sports and cultural activities, playing for football and volleyball teams, as well as being involved in a music group. By the time she graduated from high school, she had decided on her future profession, to become a funeral home director. Rachel was distinguished by her deep compassion and responsiveness to the pain of others, striving to support those in need. That's why she decided her calling was to assist the bereaved in organizing farewells and funeral ceremonies. In pursuit of a profession that would allow her to help people during difficult moments of their lives, Rachel enrolled in a university located at a surprisingly convenient half-hour drive from her childhood home. There, she didn't just emerge as a student, but as one of the most promising graduates, thanks to her outstanding academic achievements and leadership qualities. After successfully completing her university education, Rachel continued her educational journey, enrolling in a specialized college in Cincinnati, which became another step toward her professional dream. In 2017, armed with knowledge and new skills, she moved to Columbus, where her career path began to develop rapidly. Thanks to her perseverance in education, Rachel not only found a job at a funeral bureau, but also immediately began an internship where she demonstrated her diligence, professionalism, and deep understanding of the importance of her work every day. Her hard work and pursuit of excellence did not go unnoticed by the management, which quickly concluded the necessity of offering her a permanent position after the internship ended. Rachel, in turn, became deeply attached to her place of work and even expressed a desire to spend her entire career there, finding a special meaning in assisting people during such a difficult period of their lives. Her life in the new city began with renting an apartment in a cozy suburb where she could enjoy peace and solitude while preparing to complete her internship and begin her full-fledged professional activities. Aside from her career plans, Rachel eagerly anticipated the upcoming 24th birthday, which was to occur on January 28, 2018. Her younger brother John, always close by and supportive of her endeavors, decided to give his sister an unforgettable celebration. He organized a party at his friend's house, inviting several mutual acquaintances to jointly celebrate this important day. John arrived in Columbus the day before the event and stayed with Rachel to prepare for the celebration together. Due to her busy work schedule that day, Rachel entrusted her brother with her main apartment key. The only spare key was with Rachel's friend in case of any unforeseen circumstances, so the girl could only enter her home if her brother let her in. In their quest to gather all their friends for a joint celebration, Rachel and her brother decided that the best solution would be to organize a party on the eve of her birthday, that is, on the evening of January 27th. After finishing her workday, Rachel headed to her friend's house, where a warm and friendly atmosphere awaited her, filled with laughter, music, and joyous moments. In honor of reaching her 24th year, the evening turned into a bright and unforgettable event that lasted until late into the night. Considering the late hour, Rachel and her brother decided to stay overnight at their friend's place. The next morning, after returning to her apartment, Rachel's brother soon headed back home. However, once he arrived in his city, he was astonished to find that he had forgotten to return the apartment keys to Rachel. After a phone conversation with his sister, it became clear that Rachel could use a spare key, which was with a friend. However, the friend had left the key with the couple with whom they celebrated the birthday. Learning that the owners had gone to another city and would not return until the evening, Rachel decided to pick up the key after work. Finishing her shift around 6:30 p.m., she collected the key, bid farewell to her friends, and headed home. On her way, Rachel called her mom, and they spent about 10 minutes chatting, sharing news and plans for the near future. It was expected that Rachel would appear at work the next day, as she was known for her dedication and enthusiasm. She never arrived late, often even arriving earlier than scheduled. However, to the surprise of her colleagues and management, Rachel did not show up for work, marking a strange deviation from her usual behavior and causing concern among those who knew her. In the middle of the day, concerned about Rachel's absence from work, her manager decided to send one of the colleagues to her place of residence to ensure her well-being. Considering that the girl had recently celebrated her birthday, there was speculation that she might have partied too hard and failed to wake up in time. However, preferring to err on the side of caution, the management decided to personally check on Rachel's condition. Upon arrival, the colleague spent several minutes knocking on Rachel's apartment door, but no response followed. At that moment, his attention was drawn to the housing complex's administrator, to whom he turned with a request to open the door. However, he was refused, as the administrator did not have the authority to intervene without the tenant's consent or a court order. Unable to gain access to the apartment, the colleague decided to take a look through the living room window, where an unexpected scene unfolded before him. A candle was burning on the table. This fact seemed extremely odd, as no one responded to his knocking. It raised the assumption that Rachel might have accidentally left the candle burning and left. With this in mind, he decided to call the police, who quickly dispatched an officer to the scene. Meanwhile, the housing complex's manager revealed a detail that the lease agreement for the apartment listed the name of Rachel's ex-boyfriend instead of hers. It turned out that after moving to Columbus, Rachel and her boyfriend had rented the apartment together. But after their breakup, the contract remained in his name. Accordingly, permission to enter the apartment had to be obtained specifically from him. The manager immediately contacted Rachel's ex-boyfriend, listed in the agreement, and he consented to entry into the apartment. After this, the administrator opened the door with a service key and entered to investigate the circumstances. Inside the apartment, the setting appeared ordinary, except for a single burning candle, which was the only unusual element in the entire place. The absence of any signs of violence, struggle, or blood did not raise suspicions with the arriving police officer. It seemed as though Rachel had just left and was about to return home at any moment. After a brief inspection, the police officer, along with Rachel's colleague, left the apartment, and the manager locked the door behind them with a key. Rachel's friend Jonathan, with whom she had celebrated her birthday, was soon informed of the incident. Rachel's boss had called him, reporting her absence from work and her home. Concerned by such news, Jonathan immediately headed to her residence, but upon arrival, he could not find Rachel. Despite several minutes of knocking on the door and attempting to look through the window, there was no response. Noticing Rachel's car in the parking lot, he observed it was not in its usual spot in front of the house, but around the corner, which was unusual for the organized parking spaces of such complexes. However, the presence of the car indicated that Rachel could not have gone far, which only heightened his concern. At a certain moment, Jonathan noticed a passing police patrol car and signaled to the officers. They stopped, and he shared his concerns with them. Consequently, the police called the housing complex's manager, who, for the second time that day, opened Rachel's apartment door to allow further investigation. Jonathan immediately went upstairs while the police inspected the living room on the first floor. As soon as he crossed the threshold of the upper floor, his piercing scream alarmed the officers, prompting them to rush to his aid. In the closet of Rachel's bedroom, they found her body. She was partially wrapped in a blanket, and her head was covered with a shirt. Additionally, another piece of clothing was tightly wrapped around the girl's neck, its end tied to the closet handle from the inside. Forensic experts were called to the scene and, after a thorough inspection of the apartment, found no clear signs of forced entry or struggle, except for the closet where the body was located. Everything else in the apartment looked absolutely normal. However, the police noticed Rachel's bag lying on the living room floor. Inside the bag, detectives found a fast food restaurant receipt and a partially uneaten dinner on the table in the room, with the date and time on the receipt indicating the evening before the discovery, 1932. The investigation concluded that the attack on Rachel occurred shortly after she returned home and began to have dinner. Detectives also noted the absence of any money and bank cards in the house, suggesting that the criminal might have taken them. During a detailed inspection of the bedroom, forensic experts discovered a large, presumably blood-stained spot on the carpet by the bed, serving as additional evidence of a brutal crime. During further investigation, as detectives carefully removed Rechel's body from the closet and removed the blanket, they encountered a series of shocking findings. The victim was nearly devoid of clothing, except for the piece wrapped around her neck. Beneath it, they discovered a tightly fastened wire stretching from the room to the closet. Furthermore, Rechel's hands and feet were securely tied with rags, and a piece of cloth was found in her mouth. Under her body on the floor lay her underwear. The medical examination revealed that Rechel had sustained a knife wound to her neck, and her death resulted from strangulation with a wire. Additionally, it was discovered that the victim had been sexually assaulted, and a DNA sample from the assailant was collected and sent to a lab for identification. While forensic experts meticulously searched for clues both in Rechel's apartment and her car, investigators conducted interviews with her relatives and friends. Rechel's brother, who arrived in Columbus immediately after being notified of the incident, shared information about his sister's last days, including his suspicions about a possible perpetrator. Particular attention was paid to the brother's account of Jonathan, the friend who first discovered Rechel's body. Weeks before the tragedy, Rechel had shared her observations about Jonathan's unusual behavior with her brother. According to her, during gatherings with friends, Jonathan began paying her excessive attention, which she found strange given his marital status. Rechel speculated that his actions could be motivated by romantic feelings, which alarmed her considering his family status. Rechel expressed concern about Jonathan, confessing that his behavior had started to worry her. Her brother mentioned that after their conversation on this topic, she never revisited her concerns, and a few weeks later they cheerfully celebrated her birthday at the home of Jonathan and his wife. Additionally, Rechel mentioned to her brother about the peculiar behavior of one of the neighbors in the residential complex, without delving into details or specifying what exactly caused her concern. After speaking with Rechel's brother, detectives decided to meet with Jonathan, who denied having romantic feelings for Rechel and any involvement in her death. He claimed to have spent that evening with his wife, who confirmed his alibi. Despite his statements, investigators continued to consider him among the possible suspects, especially since he was the first to head to Rechel's bedroom and touch the closet door and Rechel herself. According to Jonathan, he did not realize she was dead immediately and attempted to help her. Investigators also met with Rechel's ex-boyfriend, who still had a key to her apartment. However, he provided an alibi, stating he was in another city at the time of the crime. As a result, the police had to search for additional clues and leads to advance the investigation of this mysterious murder. Realizing that the criminal likely stole Rechel's bank cards, investigators contacted her financial institution to obtain information about the latest transactions on her account. Analyzing the banking data, they discovered that on January 28th at 9:43 p.m., Rechel's bank card was used to withdraw cash from an ATM located at a grocery store. The police suspected that by that time, Rechel might have already been deceased, which prompted them to immediately visit the specified store to review the surveillance footage. The recordings showed Rechel's car approaching the store, but instead of her, an unknown man exited from the passenger side. He approached the ATM, performed the withdrawal, and returned to the car. The video quality allowed for a partial view of the suspect's face, but the available footage was insufficient for a precise identification of this person's identity. However, investigators managed to capture an interesting moment. The video showed that someone else was sitting in the driver's seat of the car, but only their hand was caught on camera. That same night and over the following few days, cash withdrawals were made from Rechel's bank card at various locations around the city. Each time, an unknown man exited her car, approached the ATM, completed the transaction, and returned to the vehicle. These sequential cash withdrawals across different parts of the city painted a picture of the perpetrator's calculated actions for the investigators. Starting their investigation at the grocery store where cash was withdrawn using Rechel's card, the police printed and showed the store clerk a photo of the suspect caught on video. To the investigators' surprise, the clerk not only recognized the man in the photo, but was also able to name him. He was Anthony, a homeless man frequently seen in the store's parking lot. Given Anthony's lack of a permanent residence, the officers decided to wait for his reappearance at the store and asked the clerk to immediately notify them upon seeing Anthony. Soon, on February 8th, the clerk contacted the police, reporting Anthony's arrival at the parking lot, and he was promptly arrested. During the interrogation about the source of Rechel's bank card, Anthony told the detectives an unusual story. On the evening of January 28th, while near the store, he was approached by a stranger who had just exited the store. The stranger claimed he needed help. He had just broken up with his girlfriend, who was now attempting to steal his money. He asked Anthony to withdraw cash from his ex-girlfriend's card, provided the PIN, and promised to pay for Anthony's night in a nice hotel as a token of gratitude. Agreeing to the proposal, Anthony took the card and headed to the ATM inside the store. The stranger requested him to withdraw $2,000, but the ATM only dispensed $40. After the first unsuccessful attempt to withdraw a significant amount, the stranger drove Anthony to various locations in the city, stopping at different ATMs where Anthony continued to withdraw money in small amounts. Eventually, they managed to withdraw a total of $400, which they also used to buy cigarettes and other inexpensive items. After these adventures, the man left Anthony near the store and disappeared. Since then, the homeless man had not seen the mysterious stranger again. Anthony was adamant about his version of the events, and the police considered the possibility of his sincerity, supported by video recordings showing another person driving Rechel's car, consistent with Anthony's description. Anthony provided the investigators with a description of the stranger: a medium height, black man with short hair and a distinctive southern accent. After speaking with Anthony, officers intensified their efforts to collect surveillance footage from the ATMs used for transactions on Rechel's card, and soon they found a new lead. One of the cameras captured a man who tried to conceal his face with his hands. However, the investigators' attention was drawn to another detail in the video. A woman was present in the car the suspect arrived in. Further recordings showed that sometimes she accompanied the man to the ATM, and at other times she acted alone, also using Rechel's card. Considering that Anthony conducted transactions with the card only on January 28th, and the withdrawals continued in the subsequent days, detectives concluded that the perpetrator was using Rechel's bank card in collaboration with a woman, whether she was his girlfriend or merely an acquaintance. The police found footage that clearly showed the face of the identified woman and tried to find out her identity. They soon succeeded. Someone identified her and told investigators that she was Deborah Pardon. After learning her address, investigators went to speak with her. Once the woman was told that they had evidence of her use of the murdered victim's bank card, she immediately started talking. Deborah stated that her brother had given her the card, saying it belonged to his girlfriend. Therefore, the sister assumed that the girlfriend had authorized her brother to use the card. Detectives also discovered that Deborah was the owner of the vehicle that was caught on surveillance video with the suspect inside. He turned out to be a 54-year-old man named Anthony Pardon, who is Deborah's brother. When the police checked his name,